Hello everybody and welcome back to Noel's Big Family Life. Today I'm going to share with you an interview with my grandmother, and this is Hazel and how life was growing up in the 1930s and the 1940s, and that's why I named it Through Hazel's Eyes, because this is her story of what life was like. I hope you enjoy it. I don't think that'd be good.
What are you going to do?
Well, I'm gonna talk to you.
Yeah, just talk to me.
Just talk to you.
Yeah.
So first, start by, what year were you born?
I was born in 1932, but I didn't start cooking until I was married, because Mother didn't let us cook.
She
did all the cooking, and therefore I did all the cooking when I was married.
What year did you get married?
1954. And so that was definitely a 50s.
It was. So when was the Great Depression? Were you affected by that?
Oh, no, I wasn't affected by it, but it was the year before I was born.
The year before.
Yeah, it was the year before I was born. Well, it was 29, but it went on for 2 or 3 years. And,
but you wouldn't have remembered because you were so little.
I would have been a baby. And besides, we weren't affected by it too much because my dad worked on the railroad and he kept working. And so.
But you guys didn't have a lot of money though, right?
Well, we didn't have a lot of money, but when we didn't know it because Dad made a salary the whole time. But so we didn't have the effects of depression like some people did, but we sure did. I can remember even when Mother was cooking when she was married, and we would have to get ration cards, and we would have to ration shoes even.
Shoes?
Yes, shoes. You could only have one pair.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it was definitely. And coffee and sugar and butter. Everything was rationed.
So
I can still remember that.
So what kind of food then did Grandma cook? You lived on a farm, right? Didn't you like
Part of the times we lived in the city of Corbin, part of the time, because Daddy worked in the railroad, and we had a farm though that we tended even when we weren't there, and we hired people to plant stuff and work it, and Daddy didn't work on the farm that much because he worked on the railroad. But we had people that worked on the farm.
So what was some of the food Grandma would cook for you then?
Oh, wonderful food. She, the one thing that I was so liked was apple turnovers. Now, have you made those?
I would love to have her recipe. They have modern recipes, but it probably is not the same.
Yeah, but she made it. They dried apples. They dried, and they look somewhat like the dried apples you can buy, but they were definitely dried, and she would cook those. They had a different taste. And she would cook those down, and she would make her own pie crust, and she would make a little round pie crust, and she would put the apples, which had been cooked down, and she would put them in there, and she would make a little fork indentations. I remember that. And she would fry those.
Oh, and then fry them.
Oh, yeah, and they were so good. She would fry those in Crisco. And
What else did she put in it? Do you remember? I'll just try and make it for you.
well, she put, let's see, the apples were said was brown, and she probably put sugar or brown sugar. I don't know if she used white sugar or brown sugar, but they had to taste all their own when you fried it. It was so good. It was not like the pies you get today, but it was similar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'll have to try and make it.
yeah. If you have dried apples, do you have a something that dries the fruit?
Yeah, I have a dehydrator, so I can make
Well,
them dry
see,
in
you
that.
could do that
Hmm.
and make the. She didn't put anything in the apples when she dried them,
Right.
but I'm sure she cooked with sugar and whatever.
Well, I didn't know if
She
it was
might-
rationed, if she was able to
Yeah,
do
but
it.
she might have put, but I don't think she did. I think it was apples all their own that gives a flavor. I don't think she put cinnamon or stuff like that in it. I don't remember.
What else did she make that you loved?
Oh, fried potatoes, and oh, that's a 50. That's a what do I want to say? That is fried potatoes. That's definitely 50s. And she would peel the potatoes, and then she would cut them in little thin cut, like she would chip them,
Mm-hmm.
and she would have the thin. She would have the thin layers of the potatoes, and then she would get the grease real hot, and she would put the potatoes in it, and she would salt and pepper them, and she would, I forget some of the things, then she would put a lid on it until it would brown easily. And then she'd take the lid off and she would stir it. And she wouldn't put the lid on it until anymore. But she would, because it made them crisp.
Mm-hmm.
The lid made them, taking it off made them crisp. And she would, they're not anything like the fried potatoes that you get here. That was just their own, we loved them. And we ate them with soup beans and gravy and all that stuff. But she would, that's all she would do. And they would get tender and brown, crispy brown. And that was so good.
So was it mostly like food you guys could get off your farm?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
mostly what you
we
ate.
grew potatoes on the farm. And we kept them safe. I'm talking a little, I can't hardly talk.
You're fine.
We would,
I can edit and cut parts out,
yeah,
so it won't
we
be.
would, they would dig a hole and bury the potatoes. Isn't that something?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a hole that kept them from getting frostbite or whatever.
Because you didn't have a refrigerator.
No, we didn't have a refrigerator, so we didn't have any of those kind of things.
So Mom said that you used to have like different buildings.
Yeah, we lived on a farm, and when we lived on the farm, Dad owned the farm. He owned a farm, and we would live on it at periods of time, and he had a smokehouse and a wash house. He had a smokehouse that he hung like pork and stuff in it,
Mm-hmm.
salt pork and stuff. And we had a wash house, and we had a coal house. The smokehouse and the wash house were connected. It was one building, but it was separate things.
So was the wash house where you did like laundry, or was it where you washed
Yes,
like got baths?
we would wash. My mother had a gas washer, and we would wash, and she would heat the well water. We didn't have running water. Well water, and she would heat that in a tub, and she washed, and she would start out with the white things. She didn't wash clothes like we would do today. She would wash the white things and then the colored things, but all in one. She would wash the white things, and then after she rinsed them, she would put the colored things in it. But she washed the sheets and stuff all of it themselves.
And then hung everything.
Yeah, she hung everything that she could. But we had hangers in the, I think she had it in the wash house where it was, if it was cold or rainy or something, she would hang them on strings like.
So did you have the milkman and the ice truck and all of that too?
No.
You didn't?
We bought ice, but not all the time. We bought ice they would have ice houses where you could buy blocks of ice. Not anymore. They don't have that anymore because no need for it. But they have just wash houses. Ice houses. And you could go and get a block of ice, and you had a cold refrigerator, and you put that ice in the refrigerator, but it was frozen from the ice, the block of ice. So we had that part-time. We didn't always have it, but we had it whenever my mother would get the ice. But
how did she keep things from going bad?
well, you know what? I think she mostly cooked things that would not go bad. But we ate most of the things that she cooked that day because we were from a big family and we just ate it.
Yeah, how many of you are there?
It's alive then.
But there were 13 of you all together, weren't there?
Yeah, there was 13, but we weren't all there at the same time.
So what was school like? Did you have to walk to school?
We had to walk to school, and it was a 3-room schoolhouse. And I forget how many grades was in one class. And yeah, we had to walk to school, and we just dressed warm. And if it was too bad, Mother kept us out. But if it was raining, snowy and stuff. But most of the time we walked to school, and it took us about, I think it took us over an hour to get to school.
Wow.
Yeah, it was over a mile. And I remember that so well. We climbed that gravel road, and it was a hill before we got to the class, to the school. And we were unlike even the people that rode the bus. They were from a different area, so they had to ride a bus.
Oh, there was a bus.
Mm-hmm. There was a bus, but we weren't allowed to ride it because we were from a different area. And they had to ride it because they would come from other parts. And they would bring live bread, we called it live bread, white bread, sandwiches. And we didn't have that all the time, so Mother would make us biscuits, and she would put different things in it with our lunch. So we didn't really eat with them because we would hope that we'd have white bread
Oh.
That's one thing I remember.
So you were embarrassed that you didn't have the white bread?
I was ashamed that we didn't have white bread, and we had biscuits instead. It was good. But
so what would she put in your biscuit?
Well, she would put a fried egg, or she would put a Vienna sausage that she would get. She would put that in, and she would mix things with it. Fried potatoes and different things. She would mix with it. It was good, but it just wasn't what the other kids brought.
So the kids that rode the bus, were they kids with more money than
They were
you
kids
guys?
that lived in the area where they had stores and stuff.
Where you were country?
Yeah, where we lived in the country. And anyway, what is some of the other things that you want to know what I had? Soup beans, of course.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah.
That's lasted throughout the years.
So what would like Christmas dinner be when you were a kid? Like you still did
Oh,
like
it
Christmas
was like chicken. It was like, like chicken. But we had our Christmas, but it wasn't like going to people's houses and having Christmas, because we were a big family, and so we had Christmas. But we didn't get much.
Did you have stockings and all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we did have stockings, but we didn't have that much. But I remember we would always get candy, Christmas candy, and we had apples and oranges and things like that, that it was a treat for us.
So you didn't have a lot of that kind of fruit, like just ready to eat whenever you wanted?
No, we didn't.
So what kind of fruit did you have?
Well, we did have, and Daddy would, they would have a thing where they kept apples. We had a well house that it was cold pretty much, and it would be cold enough to keep things like that. It was a concrete.
Mm-hmm. Did Grandma can stuff then?
Oh yeah, she canned all the time, and she would make peaches and canned tomatoes and peaches and green beans, and she canned all the time.
So you probably had that kind of stuff
Yeah,
then for
so
fruit.
we had that kind of stuff, and she had a pantry that she put it in, and that was a good-sized pantry. And
So how did you get your clothes and your shoes? You said that they rationed your shoes and things like that. How did you?
well, that was another period of time when this is when we just lived.
Mm-hmm.
We got shoes. We maybe had shoes that was appropriate for the cold weather. We got shoes, and then we just got, I guess, I don't know what we had when it was so, because we went to school when it was still summer out. I mean, it was not cold.
Mm-hmm. So did you like take a trip to find, because you didn't live by a store.
Yeah, but we lived about 5 miles from a store.
Oh, so you were able to get to
It was just that we could go to the store, to get shoes and stuff like that. But we didn't have a lot. I mean, we had good shoes I remember in the winter months. And we probably had sandals or something when we started school. I don't really remember that.
What would you guys do for fun?
For fun?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness, we played, checkers and dominoes, and we would play, one game was to hit the ball. We would have a house. We would have a house, and we would hit the ball over the house, and the one that caught it was the winter. And, but what was that called? Oh, I don't remember. But we had a hopscotch, and we played all kind of games. And Mother would let us use the house. This is something that I remember because it was unheard of. People letting them use the house. She would let us, because when it wasn't, when we couldn't go outside, she would let us use we played school. We played like school. And she would let us use chalk and mark on the doors. Because the doors were painted brown, I think. As I remember, they were painted brown. And the chalk showed up. And she would let us use that. And I think that was unheard of in modern times. But we had all kinds of, when we were able to go outside in the summertime, we went swimming. We were swimming in a creek down by our house. Our house was very close to the water. And we would go swimming. And but in the river, but in the creek. And well, what are some of the other things? We stayed busy for sure, but we were more just for playing with each other. You know, we had lamps that they use in restaurants now. If you ate Cracker Barrel, you see those lamps. That's what we used, and it would light up a room when we lived on the farm. But when we went to live in the town, little town of Corbin, we had electric lights and all the things that we would have electric lights and refrigerators and all that stuff. And Mother used to curl our hair. She curled mine on rollers, but that she put in I don't know, she might have used electric rollers when she, kind of like wires, and she would curl it. But when she didn't have that, she would curl it on strings.
On strings?
Yes, she would. It was thick strings, like some strings would be thick, and she would curl it, and then I don't remember how she tied it together, but it would make curls. And we liked that.
I bet.
And sometimes she would give us permanents. Isn't that something?
Really?
She could buy permanents, and she would give us. And I thought that was the greatest thing when she gave me a permanent. Yeah.
And then how old were you when you got like your first job?
Well, you know, Harry and Pearl had gone to Maryland to live, and Kay, you know, Kay was a small child, and they needed somebody to watch her. And I volunteered to go, but Mother let me go. And she said that was the biggest mistake she ever did, because I was only in the 10th grade. And the principal just went on about her letting me go. She let me go to Maryland to watch Kay. And
so is that as far as you went in school, was 10th grade?
Yeah. But I went, I did go to a business school when I got back, but I didn't want to go to school because I only stayed about 6 months, but that was a semester, and so I just didn't want to go. And I worked at Kentucky Fried Chicken, And
You worked for the
I
Colonel.
worked for the Colonel. I saw him almost every day.
And what was he like?
He was very mean. You wanted to stay out of his sight. Now, I think he got okay in years beyond, but he was mean, and he was mean to the cooks. But we had wonderful food there. I think that was before. It wasn't like Kentucky Fried Chicken now. I think maybe the chicken was, but we had ham and everything and biscuits. It was very good. And they had pancakes. They had breakfast and stuff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I worked there. And so I didn't want to go back to school. And I went to, I did go to the business school to take typing and I think I took typing and shorthand and stuff. And Margie got married. She's 3 years older than me. So I was 16 when I came back from the Pearl and Harry. And but Margie was 19, I guess, and she got married to Gene, her husband from around, and they lived in. They ended up living in Hamilton. That's how come we were there. And I got a job working at Wilmer's, it was called then, but it was later Elder Beerman.
So did you live with Margie and Jean then?
Yeah, I lived with them, but I didn't stay there too long. And I went, well, I guess I worked, whenever I stayed with Pearl and Harry, I worked at this factory because I didn't want to babysit. After I went there a little while, I didn't want to babysit. So she said, Pearl said, well, we'll get a job together. And we did. And and I was only 15 at the time. At that time, I was only 15. And do you want to hear all this?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
And they, we got a job, and the main man, he had this glass office, and several people worked in there. But he said to me, you can come back. When I was walking in the hallway, he said, you can come back anytime and work for me. So that was a compliment.
You were a good worker.
Because that was a big boss. And then I had to go. So Mother and Daddy was so upset that I went to Pearl and Harry's because I didn't go back to school. And anyway, then I went to Margie and Jean's, and I got that job with Wilmer's. And what did I go from then? I went back, no, I don't think I went back to Correspond. I went back to Maryland because I had several boyfriends. I had several boyfriends, and I know that I liked some of them, especially this one. And I started working at a department store, a big department store, but I had to ride the bus. Nobody had cars. I had to ride the bus. And so I worked there, and it was quite a ways that I had to work. And then I had an opportunity to go to a supermarket. It was called Acme. It doesn't exist. No. It was called Acme, and it was close by where we lived, and they paid more money. So I went there to work, and then Kay was about 9 or 10, I guess, then. And I had this girlfriend, and she wanted me to live with her. So I lived with her, and I didn't stay with Pearl and Harry then. And I lived with her, and I guess I was out there a year or so. And I met this one guy that I had worked with at this factory. I was engaged to.
You were? I never knew that.
Yeah, I was engaged to him. But he was wanting to go in the Air Force. So when he went in the Air Force, he didn't want to be engaged. And he broke up with me.
Aww.
And I was so sad. I think I would have still liked him. I loved him. And so that was the end of that. But his mother liked me so much, and I went out there. In fact, Ron and I were stationed at Maryland, and we went to see her, his mother.
Oh.
And that's something she liked me so much.
So then when did you meet Grandpa?
Well, when I'm thinking, because we didn't, let me see, let me think about it. Well, that was when, and I went back to Corbin then. I went back to Corbin.
After he broke up with you?
Yeah, and I wasn't happy there at that time. So Paul and Alma, the one that just died, they wanted me to come and stay with them and get a job. I was all.
You stayed with everybody.
I did, because there was nobody to. I mean, you didn't make enough work. Look, Noel, I made $38 a week. It was the average thing. You just didn't make any money. I think they made, like Harry and Pearl, they made $50 a week.
Wow.
We didn't make much money. That would be called, it was depressing times, really. But it wasn't called depression, it was just times that we lived in. And I worked with this girl that she told me that she had a cousin that he was in Korea, and she wanted me to meet him whenever he came home. And he came home, and sure enough, we were sitting across the road eating lunch in this little restaurant. And he came in, because I think she told him she wanted me to meet him. And he was so happy to have me, for her to meet this, or for me to meet. him. And they said, well, we'll go to what is that one thing, playground? What is that one? It's still there. Like Kings Island.
Coney Island?
Yeah, Coney Island. And they wanted to plan to go to Kings Island the next day when we were off. And he said, good deal. And I never will forget that. And that's something, some things just stick with you. And he was on leave. He was on furlough, it's called. And we met and we went to Coney Island. And we made it a day because the cousins were all close and they went too. And it was, we danced and we went swimming and we made sure a day of it. And from then on we were, we really hit it off. And
So was that Grandpa?
yeah.
That was Grandpa?
Yeah, that was Grandpa.
Oh. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you loved that as much as I did. She is such a special, special woman. And I will see you guys in just a few days with 3 wonderful fall chicken crock pot recipes. Super easy to do, minutes to throw together, and boom, you have dinner ready. So you don't want to miss it. Make sure that you are subscribed if you're not already, and ring the little bell so that you make sure that you get notified of all new videos. I will see all of you later. Thank you so much for watching. Bye, everybody.